Hey, welcome everybody to VO Influencer, part of the Biz Chat Mondays. And I'm Rebecca Haugh, and I'm really excited today. It's our second interview of the series, and we have DC Newman with us today. Welcome, DC.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy. So, VO Influencer is basically a business chat with somebody who's been very successful in voiceover, no matter where they are in the world, but most of the time it's Americans. And today we have with us DC Newman, well, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself as we get into this, huh, DC? You've been in the business for 11 plus years.
January was my 12th anniversary in the business. I've had
Congratulations.
kind of an awkward path. I got into the business way back in the olden days of tape and razor blades for editing. In high school, I was in the DECA program, and it was a business program, and the goal was to get you sort of an internship with the business. And I think their intention was to get you into an office, get you into retail, get you into traditional businesses. And of course, I went, well, I'd like to work in radio. And my instructor had no idea what to do. So he goes, well, I don't know. How would you like to do that? So I gave him some contact information for the number one station in town and said, why don't you try there? And 2 weeks later, I was in their research department, in their marketing arm. And then I weaseled my way into the studio after hours, after my shift was over.
So, just a note for everybody listening, weaseling is an attribute. That's a pun.
It is, it is a form of affection
It
towards the
is.
profession that you are
Yeah. Yeah.
aspiring towards.
That's right.
Basically, I made myself useful, and they went, "Hey, can you help with this?" And I went, "Yes."
That's great.
Yes is a great answer. I found myself running the board for a weekend show, and then the folks running the show went, "Hey, can you come drive?" Because this was back in the good old days when they would be out and about in the
Ah,
with the remote equipment.
right.
They called it Party Patrol. So we were out, and at 17, I'm out
That's fun.
all night long with a whole bunch of radio people, and
Who are crazy, probably too, by the way, creating lots of
it
mayhem,
sort
but
of
in a fun
spiraled.
way.
Yeah, there was a lot of mayhem, but you can only get away with so much because the FCC is always watching. So you have
Sure,
to
sure, sure.
reasonably professional. From there, I transferred to another station, the number two station in town, who gave me my own shift. I talked to them on a Thursday.
Wow.
They trained me on Friday, and I went live on Saturday.
Day three. Nothing like
Yeah.
jumping in. Wow.
Luckily, I had an idea what I was doing since I had board experience.
Yeah.
But from there, my day was an air shift, production work, which was doing commercials.
Yeah.
They'd hand me a stack because I was a captive audience. Hey, we're paying you, so go
Yeah.
do these. And I
Yeah.
was the assistant engineer, so I learned how to run the station and keep it running, which has translated very well into what I do now because in addition to voiceover, I help folks with their tech. I help them
Yeah.
with their studios. And just a point of clarification, I am not a studio engineer like some of the other folks in the business. I
Mm.
am a retired broadcast engineer. So my expertise is in a very different area. I've never necessarily engineered for famous people. I built spaces and made stuff work on zero budget because radio is always kind of a zero budget proposition. But I did take a 30-year side trip through high technology because I realized that radio is not going to pay the bills long term. It's never been a great way to make money. So I moved into high technology and worked for a little internet startup back in the 90s, helped pioneer a lot of the things that we're using right now. Online chat, high speed, online gaming. I was on various teams involved with all of those things, and I'm terribly sorry because we had the best of intentions, but people being people, we've taken some of those things that we built way back when and turned them into tools for evil. At least it seems like, depending on your day and your perspective on the internet. But
Businesses always grow. Humans are always in charge. We're
that's right.
not
Uh,
perfect.
But it's been an interesting ride. In addition to all of that, I also took a quick side trip, worked for a funeral home, painted railroad cars, ran a hobby shop. I've never had a traditional job. Everything has been presenting, educating, breaking things. I spent a number of years breaking things as a professional software tester. So if I can't break it, it's a pretty solid product usually.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But
Well,
that
let's
all of those
talk
things.
about the 12-year anniversary and how that represents the professional VO career, right?
Yep, that is 12 years in the business. I got back in the business after my daughter went to kindergarten because I realized I had to get a real job again. And
I love how you call this a real job because a lot of people don't even think
well,
that.
my primary job for 5.5 years was taking care of the little one. We were
Yeah.
inseparable, and I did the stay-at-home dad thing and loved it.
Yeah.
And then I had to get a real job because nobody's going to pay me when she's in kindergarten because she's off doing school stuff, and I gotta pull my own weight. So my wife, being the smart one, said, "Why don't you get back into voice work?" So I took a look and realized that things were a lot different now, and got back in via audiobooks. Did about 35 or
Oh,
so audiobooks, and then realized that audiobooks was okay, but not really my happy place. No offense to any of the audiobook people. It is a great genre to work in,
yeah.
and it
Yeah.
really gives you a lot of skills in terms of not only the editing end of things, but also the character work. So
Yeah.
I love my audiobook peeps. That's really not where I want to be. So I
Right. I
think
get it.
I'm commercial with an eye to documentary
Mm.
and in-show narration with potentially some promo and trailer in the future, which I am fully aware is probably the most difficult area in the business to really break into
Well,
because
that's
it's
a really good segue to kind of focus on what we want to talk about, which is, a lot of the interviews that I see out there, and this is why I created this podcast, is that people talk about the career and the creative aspects, the acting side of things and such. So I feel like that's a saturated market. And I call this Biz Chat because what we do on a weekly basis, and we're really happy that you're part of this on a regular basis, besides being our guest today, is focusing on the behind the scenes that we have to take care of as a business, as running a business. And since you've been at this professionally, let's say back into it in a way because of your background for 12 years now, congratulations. Um, yeah, what if you kind of think about your trajectory and what you had to refocus on to get back to work, to get a
Mhm.
real job, and then really kind of bringing you to today. If you could just try to sort of think about that moment and then think about where you're at now from a business background from a
Mhm.
business behind the scenes, what you have to do daily or weekly. Um, what do you feel are the primary points of focus for you in making that successful and making that 12-year stretch?
Well, I was fortunate in that I spent time in corporate America, and
Uh,
they put me in charge of a bunch of projects where there was budgeting and deadlines and requirements involved. So the business side of things was not completely unexpected.
mhm.
But what I've noticed over the years is a lot of folks get into this business as creatives. And the reality is, we're all small business owners who happen to have a creative product. But we've got to think of ourselves as small business. So when I got back in, the first thing I started looking at was what do I need to do to build sort of the infrastructure to support the business? Because doing the
And what
thing,
does infrastructure mean to you?
for me, it's the processes and the systems. Find a CPA, make sure that my incorporation is done properly because I am fully incorporated in my state as an LLC. There are
Mhm.
tax advantages to that. Knowing that there are tax advantages is sort of part of the process.
Mhm.
I also you've got to track who you reach out to and who gets back to you and who doesn't get back to you. And not only that, there's the billing and the contracts and all of the other little parts of a business. And it's not a microphone and recording software and a script. It's
That
10
and more.
well, 10% of that is the fun stuff with the microphone and the script and the recording
Yeah.
software. The other 90% is the stuff nobody wants to do. The marketing, the taxes, the keeping your receipts so your CPA doesn't scream at you at tax time because you can't deduct that. You have no documentation for it.
Right.
Um, and I try to impress upon people that it is a small business. I like to tell people, you are the CEO of You Incorporated, and you have to think of it that way. You can't
Right.
just go, oh, I'm a creative. I don't do tech.
Right.
We are technical people. We are
Right.
business people, and that is the first. And it hasn't always been easy. There are parts of the sort of back end infrastructure that I am not a huge fan of. Uh,
Which might be like,
Mostly the marketing and the social media aspect of it. In today's world,
mm,
social media is kind of important. And with my particular background in broadcasting and lots of local events, and then going into the internet, I'm really skeptical of social media. I have a hard firewall between my personal life and my business life. And I do that for a number of reasons. But if it's on the internet, it's not private anymore.
right.
So, I don't want to make that choice for my child. I want them to be able to make that choice when they're older. And also, it's a safety thing. I had some experiences when I was in broadcasting where there were some uncomfortable things that happened. So, at a very early age, before I was 18, I learned how to take myself out of the phone book and get an unlisted number.
Oh, wow.
And, you start thinking about personal safety and your
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
So, and not that there's anything wrong with it, because there's a lot of folks in our business right now that are just killing it on social media.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's just not for me. So I suppose in that sense, the marketing end of things is a little more difficult because I'm a I'm a people person. I much rather interact with folks one on
You're an
one.
in-person people person.
I'm an in-person people person. Well, and I'm a firm believer because of my background in the internet space, you can't really learn about a person by stalking them on the internet. You can learn things, but
Yeah.
you really can't know a person. But we're in a society now where people know you because they see you on the internet, and you and your internet persona are often very different things.
Yeah.
So,
Which
which
is
makes it,
great from a business aspect for, actors know this. Let's say traditional celebrity level actors know this. And that's a really good point to sort of just put a highlight on in terms of this business, because you and I can both agree probably that a lot of promotion can come from the social media, and then you can build business off of that, and a lot of voice actors have taken that route, and that's fine. So it's a different angle that you've come from, which even points to maybe a hardier business background side of things to then manage not going in that direction but still
right.
build that business. Yeah, if you were to
Well,
look. Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
I'm fortunate in that the areas in which I want to work are not hugely social media driven. If I was in, for example, animation
Ah,
or video games, I know that there is a ton of work and casting and interactions with the decision makers that does happen via social media. The areas that I really specialize in don't. It's all agent driven. So I'm fortunate in that I don't really have to shove through that block and do things that are sort of against my personal code, as it were.
well, and
Uh,
I think what you just said, even though you're saying it very casually, like everybody knows it, isn't something everybody thinks about, right? So that's another business side of things that you're putting an angle on, that you're recognizing the fact that, certain genres in voiceover will actually require a more of a, will benefit you hugely,
yeah,
let's say, not require, but benefit you hugely if you do that social media
absolutely.
aspect of it, right?
And
Yeah.
a lot of it is doing your research. That's the infrastructure work. That is the business building work, is researching the genres that you want to work in and finding out how they really work versus how a lot of people think they work.
Yeah.
Go where the people are, swim in the ponds with the people that are doing the work you want to do. Because a lot of this business is networking.
Yeah,
Uh, and
it
that
really is.
that doesn't have to be on social media. If people start to see you traveling in the same circles, you will be recognized. And the more you're recognized for the right reasons, you don't want to be recognized for being a pain.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
don't want to be recognized for being clueless or causing problems.
Right.
Recognized for the right reasons,
Yeah.
people are going to start reaching out and going, "Hey, let's talk. Let's
Let
perhaps
me pause
first.
you for a moment and have you think about this next question. The question is, what is the biggest investment in terms of either whether it was cost and value or just total value that you have made in your business systems and processes that you can highlight for us just now to say that was my best focus of time and money and effort to build X, maybe it's a CRM, maybe it's a contact list, maybe it's the research spending time.
Mm.
So if you, I know, I didn't send you a list of questions or anything like that. So this is really off the cuff. So, this is what you're thinking right now in this moment. What would you say would be the one thing that you felt was worth it in that way?
Honestly, I would say the best investment overall
Mhm.
was the mindset at the outset that this is a business first and a creative endeavor second.
Mm.
I'm old school. I've got spreadsheets. Even though I'm not a big fan of Excel, CRMs tend to be overkill for what I'm doing specifically. If you're doing a lot of outreach on your own, absolutely invest the time in CRM. But do your due diligence first about the business in general. Find out if your state needs an LLC. Are there advantages to it? Talk to people that are experts in those areas. A lot of our business is, oh, I found it on YouTube, so I know what I'm doing, which is a great
Is
stepping
that what a lot
stone.
of our business is?
Well, I hear it a lot. Well, I saw
Wow.
this on YouTube, so I'm going to go this direction. Well,
Okay.
let's do a little bit of research, figure out if that's a good direction to go in.
So how
Um,
do you get that business mindset? What do you think? Because you say it like that's easy, but I have always
it,
purported that myself. And I know that a lot of people don't naturally think of that because they think of voiceover as playing, which
yeah,
absolutely it is.
yep.
But some people don't think that it's a small business. And so, how can we help? What would you tell them to help them put that mindset forward?
Stop making excuses.
Oh,
There,
that's nice.
I don't want to call it a movement, but there's a phrase that a lot of people use at conferences.
Mhm.
Just do the thing,
Hmm.
and that can be sort of anything within the business.
Yeah.
But I've sort of, for myself, I've sort of modified that to just do the business thing
Hmm.
first, because if you don't have the business stuff in place, when you start booking, you don't have any structure to build on that going forward.
That's
Um,
nice. And I want to leave it there for a
okay.
moment. Just do the business thing first as a kind of a quote to put there because we have an audience and I want to invite them to come forward and turn on their video now. And if so, I want to open it up to questions. That's part of what the Biz Chat is supposed to be, is where we bring people forward that are involved live with us while we're recording so that they can ask you questions directly. Um, I think that some people do come into it with a little bit of a business mindset, but I think I just want to, reemphasize that that isn't always the case. And that's why we have Biz Chat on a weekly basis every Monday. And why we started this, because I thought it'd be nice to share this a little bit more broadly to help people know there is a network out there. And hopefully, through our efforts, they'll find out about you this way and take some of your common sense business tips. Would somebody like to jump forward and ask a question? Yeah, Paul.
Hey, DC. I know DC. DC is a friend, and I admire your very intentional approach to doing it as a business. And you're right. A lot of people, myself included, came to it from the perspective of I'm a performer, and they're so around the idea of what's the right word? Inculcating, is that the right word? Getting that business mindset into our heads. There are a lot of resources, there's coaching, there's YouTube. There are a lot of different methods of trying to get that wheel turning and get it
Mhm.
lubricated and get it to be a driver of the business rather than just speaking into a microphone and praying.
Yep.
So I guess I just what of all those methods do you think like, hey, do it all, do what works for you, what works for you personally? Like what do you see as this as a line of pursuit there?
I'm gonna give you the vague non-answer. Everybody learns differently, so you're gonna have to find what works well for you. If YouTube is a great starting point to get you motivated to at least start thinking about the business side of the business, then great. Uh, do I believe you should probably work with someone that is in the business that does have sort of a business consultation or business coaching? Yeah, probably, because that's part of our ongoing training. We don't need to just train our voice. We also need to continually level up our business skills. And it doesn't come naturally to everybody, especially in this business, because most of us are creatives first. And in the real world, business and creative are usually on different ends of the spectrum. But just don't be afraid of the business, because if you're afraid of the business, you're never going to get to where you want to be, because that's the bedrock upon which you build your career. We are business people first. We are small business people first. Our product is creative. And I said that earlier. I'm going to say it again because it is really important. If we think of ourselves as creatives first, the business becomes somebody else's problem.
Well, and that's a great point because I do know some voice actors, and thank you, Paul, for that good question. I do know some voice actors who are just so impossibly eccentrically wonderfully talented and creative that they almost break that rule because they are so good that no one can help just being captured by them, and they create success in that way. But not everybody has that level of exuberance or external, like you call introvert extroversion, and so a lot of people don't fall into that category. Some do. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because I have some good friends that are just incredibly wonderful entertainers. And for them, and just to acknowledge this, the business aspect of it is really having people around them that manage that for them.
Right.
Okay. And
If
then
you
of
hit it
course,
big, if you hit it big, absolutely surround yourself with
right.
the best people you can afford, because
Right.
we'll take care of all
Even
the
if you don't hit it big, I'm just saying you
yeah,
can sometimes find a path forward
right.
because you're so creative and so talented and so extroverted that you can't help but bubble it out and burst it out and have success because of that. Um, but I think we all know that that isn't the typical, and that a lot of us are what we would call a hardworking kind of an middle class type of voice actor, working voice actor, and there are a lot of us,
The rest of us have to work for it.
and we have to work for it. Yeah.
Well,
So
and I'll throw it is related to Paul's question, but I'm going to throw a plug in.
yeah.
Uh, I recommend absolutely doing things like Rebecca has set up, a biz chat, accountability groups. Get with people that can call you on your nonsense, that after 3 weeks can go, hey, you said you were going to work on this on the business side. Where are you? Because
Totally.
that is super helpful. And
Totally. I think the community that voiceover creates too, in a general way, most voiceover actors are very friendly with each other and very helpful to each other. And there's Nava and there's Wovo, and Wovo is rebuilding itself. So whatever you heard in the past, just look at Wovo again as a membership. Um, hey, who else wants to ask a question? Come forward. Turn on your video, people. Come on. I've invited Engel. You ask Raul. Nice to see you, Raul. Bethany, questions. Oh,
put
you.
them all to sleep.
Here's Bethany.
I do have a question. What applications and stuff do you use for um your invoicing and your accounts receivable, accounts payable? What applications do you use for that? In fact, what applications do you use in general for your business works?
Currently, I'm using Excel for tracking for basic spreadsheets. I use Word for a ton of stuff, scripts included. For the business side, invoicing and accounts receivable and those sorts of things, I'm using Wave apps, and I'm just on the starter free version. There's a lot of things that the free version does for you, and I don't need payroll because it's just me. I don't have a team. I have used QuickBooks in the past. QuickBooks tends to be a lot of things for a lot of businesses, but for us, it tends to be overkill and it's really expensive, especially when you're starting out. I'm a big fan of starting with a free app until you can afford something better. My recording software, I started with Audacity because it was free. I did about 18 audiobooks with Audacity and then went, all right, I'm going to upgrade. And I upgraded not because there was something that was newer and cooler. I upgraded because I could optimize my workflow further and be more efficient, which is, I think, one of the things that took me about 4 years to figure out. Because it's so easy to get distracted in this business with the new shiny things or the exciting, fun webinars and workouts and things like that. I run everything through a lens. Is this thing, whatever it is, going to help me get one step closer to where I want to be in this business? If the answer is no, doesn't matter how cool it is, I walk away. That saves me money because I'm not paying for things that aren't helping me get to where I want to be. And it also saves because I'm not buying things just because it's the new cool thing.
Well, and on top of that, I want you to like repeat that again because that is such an important thing. Not only that, it stops distracting you from your goals
Yeah.
because the shiny things are out there, people.
Everywhere. Yeah, focus on getting yourself to the next step. One step is progress. Don't ever get up and go, I only moved one step today. I had a terrible day. Some days getting up and taking care of yourself so you can get up tomorrow and move forward is still progress. And we have to give ourselves the grace to do that. But absolutely, if you can, please run everything through the filter of, is this going to benefit my business and get me where I want to go? That
And
is huge.
sometimes, and just to add on to that, and I don't see anybody, if you have a question, just, turn on your video and wave your hand because I'll see you. But not only that, sometimes you do say, it will move me forward, right, DC? And
Yep.
then maybe you learn it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
And you can stop and say, I don't have to feel guilty for trying that and spending that time.
Absolutely. Failure is a great teacher. We never learn anything from an easy win.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of failing. Fail big, fail hard, fail often, because we learn quicker that way. But it's hard because you
Yeah.
spend money on something and you get to
Right.
the end of it and you realize, oh man, I didn't get out of it what I thought I was going to.
Right.
Even there, though, you've learned that this is not where you want to be. This is not going to get you where you want to be. So it was still useful. That makes it a little less painful. It still kind of stinks sometimes. When you get to the end, it's like, oh, I paid for that, man. But
I think that's a really valuable piece of advice because I know for me, I've been like, if I bought it and I don't use it, I'm going to like thrash myself 5,000 times and keep feeling like you didn't do a good, you didn't do that right. Voice that I have to just, I've recognized at this point that I can let that go. It's like, oh, wait, okay, you tried, it didn't work, that's fine, move on. That voice has changed its tune.
well, and I lean on corporate America because in corporate America, they try things, and when they fail, they cut their losses. They will cut that line
Right.
and let that sucker sink to the bottom of the ocean and keep moving. And
Remember to cut your losses when it's
yeah,
appropriate because that's going to help you move forward.
yep,
Great advice. And I will
absolutely.
say I just lived through it in a way, but this is a really weird thing and I'd love to hear your take on it. I was using Nimble as my CRM for like 15 years. I've been in the business a little over 20. Um, and I loved Nimble, but it was starting to fail me. They were moving away from small business, it felt like, to like medium-sized businesses so
Right.
that they could grow. And I was just feeling like every change they're making is just screwing with me. It's not helping me. So I went to a new CRM that another voice actor had suggested, talked about. I spoke with and watched it. And this person had also advised me on Nimble, and I had followed that path. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go this new path to this new CRM. And I've spent a ton of money. And I have spent not only just to buy the application itself or lease it for a year, you have to lease
Hmm.
these things now, but then the investment of time with my virtual assistant and my own, and just learning the dang thing. I won't cuss. Learning the dang thing and managing and manipulating because it's so customizable, it's almost too much.
Yeah.
It's like you said, I didn't know when I got into it that it would be so difficult, that it would be so challenging in terms of time to get there where I needed. I
Yeah,
mean, I almost bailed on it a couple of times. And so the first 6 months, I basically was like, I don't know, I'm testing this, I'm testing this. And it's like, I'm not in the water on this. I could dump it. And I was
yeah,
really, and then I finally committed and I have decided to keep it, but I don't advise it to anyone else because of what I've gone through myself. But at
yeah,
this point, I'm so embedded in it. I just feel like it's better that I stick with it because it's not hurting me. It's a little expensive, but we've learned the system and now
yeah,
we know how to manipulate it. So we're really smooth sailing now, but it wasn't worth the rocky trip to get here in terms of my advising others. I've
yeah.
done it, so I'm okay now. So I just want to throw that at another kind of twist on things, right?
Yeah, there is no one true path. Everybody says that. The path in voiceover to success is different for every person. That also includes the business side. What works for person A for a CRM may not work for a person B because we all approach things differently. I tend to be very analytical. I'm a data guy. Give me a bunch of data and I can make a decision and go from there. I love that. Most people don't work that way, especially in the creative space. We're kind of at odds. But you know, slog through it. Sometimes slogging through it is the best option because
And sometimes it's not. And that's why I wanted to throw it out there
yeah,
because we were
well, and
talking about giving up. And then there was a chance where I could say, well, and then you don't always. So it's a real balancing act with your own intuition and experience and expertise. And
and
Raul has a question. I wanted to.
real quick, you made the
Yeah.
choice though midway through that process when you
Yes.
made the choice, should I give up or should I keep going? You made the choice that keep moving forward was going to be ultimately the best choice for your business at the time. So you're doing exactly what we've been talking about, figuring out your best path forward, even though it was a little bumpier than you were looking for. So
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Raul.
I've got sort of a half and half um, endorsing what you've said wholeheartedly because I didn't do it. And also cautioning the younger people out there who still have time to change that having that kind of mindset, that kind of mental habit that you've been describing will, I think, help in some of the things where I have done what you were talking about as far as checking things out before spending a lot of money and finding out I wasted not only the money, but all the time I spent checking it out.
yep.
The worst expensive, the most expensive mistakes I've made that I can think of right now have been things that I spent so much time trying to make sure I wouldn't make a mistake by doing.
Mhm.
Well, a case in point, I had this great idea and I bought a robotic DVD duplicator printer. Spent a few $1,000s on it. After
Hmm.
reading about all this thing, well, I knew enough about the tech. I was in radio for 30 years, television for another 10, and I know about production and I know some graphics. I can help people get their demos put together and make some extra money that way. Bought the thing just as discs became obsolete.
Hmm.
I mean, I might as well have bought a cassette duplicator or a
Yep.
reel to reel high speed duper. I mean, there were such things for kids that don't know. There have been several other things where I've invested or I thought I was investing. I blew money on things that seemed to be just right. And I got into them and they were either, I don't fault the product or the service or anything like that. I don't feel I was cheated, but I went ahead and tried something and I got in real trouble financially because I,
Yeah.
I couldn't follow up. I didn't have the smarts and the discipline already in place to follow up and make some of those things that might have worked work. And that's the position I'm finding myself in right now. I'm just now starting to get back to work. I had,
I'm gonna
Mhm.
I'm gonna contradict you here real quick.
Well, go ahead.
I don't think that it wasn't that you had the smarts. I think it wasn't that you did not have the foundation to build on. You had an idea and you jumped at the idea because I've done this too. Let's jump at the idea. without having a good solid base, a good solid business plan, and a business case to move it forward. Because if you were in radio and you were in TV, you've got the smarts. You can do any of the things that we can do. And don't sell yourself short. That's the other thing. I hear from a lot of folks, oh, I'm not smart enough to do that. You're smart enough to do anything you absolutely want to do. But if you're making excuses, that's an indicator you probably don't want to do it.
I don't know. I've got the I believe about learning from your mistakes, which in theory should make me the smartest person in the world.
There are always new mistakes to make, though.
Oh, and I find them. I have a friend that says I should have been a beta tester.
I made a career
Everything I
out of it.
buy,
I was a beta tester.
I can find everything that doesn't work.
That's right. So
I did have a sort of a backward experience to yours. I spent about 20 years in radio and production and writing. I didn't want to be a disc jockey. And eventually it turned out great because they had such little airtime anymore. But I coasted for so many years on the good reputation and the creative reputation that I had in this market from radio before I could get out to other markets. And I had salespeople, I had accounting people, I had you name it. They were on staff. And so when I did get into freelancing, I still was able to coast a lot on those things. But that ride, well, I'm 74 now. And that ride started petering out about in the 60s, my 60s. And so
1960s.
It was a good ride. I mean, I got more mileage out of it than I ever expected to.
That's wonderful.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Don't confuse movement for progress." Because you can move and not actually get anywhere.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
My saying is 2 steps forward, 40-yard penalty.
Just coasting is great, but at some point the momentum runs out, and then you got to work again.
Oh yeah.
I want to bring in Engel. She has a question too.
I talked too much, but thank you.
No, you didn't. Thank you. Engel, please go.
Good morning. Well, good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. So I kind of want to piggyback on what you all have been talking about in reference to self-inflicted wounds. So it's one of those things when I first got into the business, shiny object over here, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. You just want to do all the things because it's so exciting. You binge watching YouTube videos, and then it leads to people's websites offering you this great package deal. And, I quit my job after 6 months and now I'm making 6 figures. So you're just thinking, oh, wow, pie in the sky.
Yeah. And
it takes you out of a very methodical, well thought out plan because for me, it was reacting out of emotion because it just looked, oh, wow, that's exactly what I need to do. Like one of those too good to be true type things. And I felt like I got had, on some programs, and others not so much, others, yes. But going through all of that crap, I found this shiny objects, but thousands of dollars later.
Yeah.
Hence my self-inflicted wound. So I just wonder, did you spend a lot of money?
Absolutely. I did 3 commercial demos in my first year back in the business.
I did one.
Because I didn't get what I wanted, but I didn't know what I wanted until I was 2 demos in.
Yeah.
So at the same time, there's always something that we can learn from it. I've been through a lot of different coaching programs, a lot of different workshops and webinars and whatnot. And my rule of thumb there is exactly the same as the rest of my business. I will take what works for me and I'll let the rest of it go. And if I walk out of a workshop or a webinar or a program with one thing that works for the way I work and is actionable that I can build on, then I've still gotten value out of it. Because a lot of it is, as soon as we look at a program and say, hey, I wasted my money on that, then we start feeling bad, then we beat ourselves up, then we question the next thing that comes up that may make a noticeable difference. So it sounds very, very pie in the sky, very rainbows and unicorns, but you've got to look for the positive. If there's one little nugget that you can take away from all of those failed experiments, then you haven't really failed because you found things.
Hey, let's
One.
pause for a moment,
Sure.
DC. Hang on to that thought. I'm going to actually stop the recording for the
Okay.
Biz Chat VO Influencer podcast because the rest of this is for those people who are here. All right. So,
Fabulous.
for those of you who didn't join us today, I'm really sorry because now I'm going to shut it down, and you'll have to join us on Mondays at Biz Chat Mondays to find out more and be involved. And actually, we'll all be together on a weekly basis. A lot of the people here come on a regular basis, at least. And you're welcome to join us. So thank you, DC, for being our guest today.
Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. All right.